when I first saw the trailers for Illegal Battle Angel, I got really excited. I just thought it looked really cool, and just every scene, every moment just felt like it was going to be really, really fun to watch. And so I rented the manga series through the library, and then I read through it, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of cool, but didn't love it. So that kind of dampened my hype a little bit. And then the initial reviews started coming out a couple weeks before the film did, and they were not very good. And then my hype got dampened even more. And so I went into this, I saw it in 3D, because the one thing that most reviews said is that, well, at least the effects were good. And so I saw it in 3D and kind of was still holding out hope that it might be filled with that excitement that I initially thought. And, there are definitely some things that I would have liked it to have done differently, but overall, I definitely enjoyed my time with this film. And I mean, first of all, like all the other reviews have said, the effects blew me away. I mean, one of the first scenes, Alita gets her first cybernetic body, I guess, and her robotic body, and she gets up out of bed and just goes to look in the mirror, and it's just like, I had to just keep telling myself, like, this is an animated character completely. And it just, because it was so easy to forget that. And you see in the trailers, like, the big eyes, and honestly, they didn't really bother me that much in the trailer, and they definitely didn't bother me in the film. Maybe they will for some people, but for me, it just all fit, and she fit as a character within this world, even as a fully animated character. There were a few scenes here and there where it's, obviously, like, I know she's animated, and I could tell, but for the most part, just it's almost unnoticeable. And additionally, there's a lot of other characters that are primarily CG with a few real elements in there, and they all looked great too. And just across the board, the effects on the characters continue to blow me away throughout the film, and in the action scenes too. That's really the focus of the film, I think, is the action. It's pretty fast paced, and there's always an action scene right around the corner. They don't like to pause too much. And there's even a couple action scenes that's just like, okay, action scene, and then like you think you're going to kind of transition, but just the first action scene just kind of transitions right into the next action scene. Just like, all right, we're just going to keep going. And it was, the action was one of the big focuses of the manga, where honestly I couldn't really tell what was happening most of the time. But here it was all very clear, and it took some great moments to slow down, great moments to speed up, and it all felt great, and it was very, very entertaining to watch. It kept going, it kept me engaged, which is good, because the other more personal elements of the film is where I think it kind of slowed down. I mean, first of all, the story as a whole, similar to the manga, I didn't really think it wasn't that amazing, and while they do tell a complete story, there is definitely sequel baiting at the end. They kind of leave it off on a cliffhanger, which has bothered a lot of people in reviews, but personally for me, it was fine. But I think that's also because I've read the books, so I kind of know where it's going, regardless of if we see the rest of it in film or not. And the relationships between some of the characters was also kind of so-so. Between Alita and her father figure, Ido is played by... Is it Ido or Ido? I'm not sure, but he's played by Christoph Waltz. Theirs was really good, and I kind of wish the film had focused a little more on that. Instead, a lot of the focus is put on the relationship between Hugo and Alita. They're the main romance, and I didn't like this romance at all in the books. I really, really disliked Hugo as a character, and I didn't dislike him as much in the film, but I still just didn't feel their romantic connection. It just kind of comes up out of nowhere, and it didn't really grow, and it felt off, I guess. It never really quite gelled for me that Alita would have this much devotion to this guy who she barely knows, and they don't even seem to have that much in common. And I know that at this point, Alita's still, I mean, she's just kind of rediscovering herself, so maybe she doesn't know. She barely knows who she is, but she just knows she likes this guy, and so maybe on that level I can see how she could be impulsive, because she's essentially like a teenager mentally, because she's still discovering so much, but it just never really gelled for me. And there's a lot of big plot points that really focus on the ups and downs in this relationship, and they fell flat for me often because I just didn't really believe in them as a couple. And on the note of the books, if you have read the books, I felt it was pretty faithful. It takes things mostly from the first and second and a little bit of the third. And obviously there's stuff that's cut out, and some of the orders of different things are kind of switched around. But I felt overall it was pretty faithful to the tone of the books, and the story, like the overall story, was still pretty much there. So that was nice to see that it kind of felt like they kept the right things, I think, from the books, except for Hugo, who I just don't like him. Yeah, like I said at the beginning, despite all those faults, really the action and just honestly how cool the effects were really brought me along in this film. And, maybe that'll wear off. Like, that was the thing with Avatar, which of course Avatar is all over the advertising for this film. People went to see it in theaters and were blown away by the effects, but over time the hype around the film has subsided, though I myself am still a pretty big fan. Maybe, if I go see Alita again in 5 years or whatever, and we've advanced a lot in visual effects since then, maybe I won't like it as much and the action won't quite be enough to hold me through. As of right now, I think this is a blast to see in theaters because the effects are better than almost anything that I've seen, and the action is enough, I think, to hold most people through. And it's just a solid blockbuster. It's not going to blow you away with the story, but it gives you a cool new world to explore with some interesting characters, some not, and some great creative action to get you through. And if it sounds interesting, and if it looked interesting from the trailers, I would probably recommend checking this one out.